Hello and welcome to another World of Tanks review with me, Antonov2. And before we start talking about this tank and the Leopard 1, I've just got a bit of very good news for you, and that is that now I've got a new microphone. I've got the T-Bone SC440. I guess and hope that you can hear the difference, because before I had this microphone I was recording my videos with a pretty cheap headset from Logitech, and the headset is pretty good for the price, but it isn't very good all the same because it wasn't very expensive. So now I got this microphone. It wasn't all that expensive either, but I'm very pleased with the performance of it. I hope you are too. Yeah, so as this isn't really about the microphone but about this tank, let's have a look at it. This is the Leopard 1, a new tier 10 tank of a new German medium tank line that will be added when patch 8.5 will be released. For more information on patch 8.5 you can watch my several previews and my overview that I've made this morning of that patch. So otherwise, concerning the Leopard, let's have a look at it in the tech tree. So this is the new German tech tree, how it will look after the update. And you can see under the E50M now there's a new German medium tank line, starting with the VK3002DB. It's now called only the VK3002D. Then comes the Indian Panzer, and then comes the Leopard Prototype A. Then comes the Leopard 1 at tier 10. And I must say the Leopard 1 is a very interesting tank. Now I know I say that about nearly every tank, but this tank is even more interesting than the average interesting tank. As you can see, I've got all these three tanks that are new in the line. I've played all of them. I like the Indian Panzer a lot. I really adore it. I'm not so sure about the Leopard Prototype A. I haven't had all that many games in it. I'm not sure about it. I don't like it all that much. It's okay, but I'm not going to get all excited about this tank. About the Leopard 1, however, I'm going to get excited because I love this tank. A lot of information about the Leopard 1 seeped through before the update was released on various forums and whatever. So as I already said, I made 5 previews on this patch, mostly concerning this tank and its predecessors, and I had very high expectations towards this tank according to what I had found out about it on the internet. And I must say I was kind of disappointed after my first few games in it, because it didn't meet these expectations. But after several more games, and after getting used to it and so on, I must say that I love it. I really love it. It's my favourite tank. Now, before this tank was released, you can see if I scroll in my garage to the Russian vehicles, you can see I've got an IS-4. I've got that on the live server as well. So this is my first tier 10 tank I ever got, and after that I was actually planning on getting the 121 because I love medium tanks, and this up till now was the best medium tank after my opinion. Of course some people have other opinions, but I think this was the best, and it may still be the best, but this one, the Leopard 1, is at least as good, if not better. It isn't as good in the rankings, it's quite far below this tank in the rankings, but in the battlefield I think this tank is way better. So now I had to rethink my whole plans in World of Tanks, and I have decided to next get this Leopard 1. So at the moment I've researched the VK3002D, and you can look forward to a lot of reviews and gameplay videos from this tank line. So from the DB, which is now only the D, from the Indian Panzer, from the Prototype A, and of course as well from the Leopard 1. So let's have a look at this tank's stats and what about them is that interesting and special. I want to compare the stats of this tank to the stats of the E50M and the stats of the Batchat Lion. And the reason I want to do that is because this tank is one of the fastest tanks in the game, and it's definitely one of the fastest tier 10 medium tanks in the game. So up till now, the Batchat was the fastest tier 10 medium tank, and it still is a bit faster than the Leopard 1, but not a lot. So that's the reason why I want to compare it to the Batchat. And the reason I want to compare it to the E50M obviously is because they're both German tanks. And then the second reason is because the guns are pretty similar. So yeah, the hit points. 1950 HP is average for a tier 10 medium tank. 2050 on the E50M, 1800 on the Batchat. Okay, that's typical French, that they have low hit points. That's typical German, that they have a lot of hit points. But the Russians and the Americans have 1950 HP as well, or around that. So this is average for a tier 10 medium tank. The weight. It weighs a lot less than the E50M, and it weighs a lot more than the Batchat. So this tank is again bang in the middle. But the other tier 10 medium tanks, like say the M48 Patton, I think the M48 Patton is a bit heavier, but the T62A weighs nearly the same. So it's kind of average there too. The engine power, well, the engine power isn't really that interesting. It's more about the speed. The speed, 65 clicks per hour on the Batchat, 65 kilometers an hour in the Leopard 1, and 60 on the E50M. So of course the E50M, because it's that heavy, doesn't feel that fast. Usually it's about 50 kilometers an hour. You don't usually reach 60 kilometers an hour. You usually are somewhere between 40 and 50 kilometers an hour. With the Batchat, the acceleration is the best of any of the tier 10 medium tanks, so you very often are at about 60 kilometers an hour. With the Leopard 1, the acceleration is slightly worse than on the Batchat, but it's really good still. So this tank is usually by around 50 to 60 kilometers an hour, and it feels really fast. The traverse speed, 44 degrees per second, 42 degrees per second, 54 degrees per second. I aren't sure about this, but I think this is the tank in the game with the fastest traverse speed. It definitely feels like that. It turns really, really fast. And most of the tier 10 medium tanks have got 50 degrees per second traverse speed, so this tank is a bit better than average, but it feels that quick when it turns. It just feels like you're kind of jumping from side to side in this tank. You know, it just feels like it's lagging or so, because it's just that fast. Now we come to the major drawback, the armor. The Batchat has got less armor than this tank. The E50M obviously has got more armor, but this is no matter if it has got more than the Batchat's armor, because it still hasn't got any armor really. It's just this tank's made of wet paper all over. And I think that's a bit of a shame, because of course Wargaming did a lot of research on these stats, and they are correct according to my research as well. So the Leopard 1 in real life had 70mm frontal hull armor and so on as well. But there's a major difference with this tank to other tanks in the game, and that is that if you look at this description up here, there's always a little historical context up here, and it says that the development was started in 1956 and the first prototypes were built in 1965. So this tank is the most modern tank in the game. It's way after the Second World War. It's 20 years after that this tank was built. And it still sees servers in some countries. You can see it was exported into 10 different countries. So this tank was a lot more modern, so the armor was a lot more modern too. And this tank had a so-called composite armor, and that is armor made up of different materials. So both of these tanks obviously just had steel armor. But the armor of this tank was made up out of metals, out of ceramic, out of all kinds of different materials. I'm not sure what materials, but definitely was made up out of different layers of different materials, and that made this armor a lot more durable than the armor of any other tank in the game. So that means that I think, although this tank only has 70mm armor, which is correct, the armor should react differently when it's shot at than normal steel armor, so it should allow for that to compensate armor. So that means that the effective armor thickness should be more. But all the same, this tank I think is okay the way it is, because it needs that little armor to balance out the enormous pros. I'll compare the guns later, with the Leopard's gun and the E50M's gun. So we'll just skip that for the time being. The turret reverse speed. The Batshot's turret reverse speed is a bit quicker, but 36 degrees per second is pretty good. And the problem is, compared with the speed, the turret reverse speed is pretty bad, and compared to the track reverse speed, the turret reverse speed is pretty bad as well. What does that mean on the battlefield? It means if you do a carousel maneuver, something like that, with this tank, your turret sometimes won't be able to turn as fast enough to over time keep the aim on the target that you're carouseling. So that can be a bit of a problem. The view range, 410 meters, that's very, very, very good. View range of the Batshot, 400 meters. View range of the E50M, 400 meters. Every tier 10 tank in the game has got 400 meters, except for this tank that has 410 meters, the M48A1 Patton that has 420 meters, and 420 meters is the lead in view range. So the M48 Patton has got the best view range in the game, but this is the second best view range in the game. The Patton lacks the speed to be a scout. This tank's speed is 65 kilometers an hour. Does it lack the speed to be a scout? No. Does it lack the maneuverability to be a scout? Look at its reverse speed. It definitely doesn't. So is this the new scout in the game? Yes, it is. I'm pretty sure that this tank will be used as a scout in Clan Wars. I know up till now the Batshot was used as a scout, but I think this tank will do better. And then of course you've got your standard 750 meter signal range. You've got 720 on the E50M, but every tier 10 tank is around 750 meter signal range, so that's normal. Yeah, so I said I wanted to quickly compare the guns of the E50M and the Leopard 1, so I'll do that. The gun of the Leopard 1 actually is a British gun, so it was borrowed or bought from the British, I'm not sure. But its characteristics are very, very similar to the characteristics of the E50's gun. The caliber is exactly the same. The rate of fire is a bit better on the Leopard 1, but only a bit. You don't really realise the difference. It's more or less the same, and it isn't very fast for a medium tank. About 6.5 rounds per minute is more common with a heavy tank's gun at tier 10. Usually more like 7 or 8 rounds per minute is usual for a tier 10 medium tank. But the reload time is the only drawback with this gun. The rest of this gun is sheer awesome. The penetration, 268mm penetration with standard ammo, 270mm on the E75. That's both outstanding penetration. You will be nearly able to penetrate mouse frontal armor with this gun. Nearly, you won't be, but because the mouse armor is angled, but the penetration is outstanding. The damage, 390 damage with standard ammunition. That's okay, it's kind of standard for a tier 10 medium tank. You can see the E50M has got the same damage, and that's okay. It's pretty good. It's, yeah, it's upper average, but it's still average. Now we come to the accuracy. 0.3 accuracy. This is the most accurate tier 10 gun in the game with the E50M's gun. The aiming time, 1.9 seconds for aiming, 2.1 seconds on the E50M. So what does that mean, effectively speaking, for this gun? It means that makes this gun the most perfect sniping gun in the game. This gun is even better for sniping than the gun of the E50. Why? Because it aims 0.2 seconds faster. At the aiming time of this gun, you're more likely to find this aiming time on a tier 2 or 3 tank than on these high caliber guns. So for a 10.5 centimeter gun, the aiming time is awesome. So I'm a huge fan of this gun. There are a few more things I want to say to this tank in general. First of all, as you can see, it has a pretty sturdy looking gun mantle, but you can't possibly rely on the gun mantle helping you in a battle in terms of bouncing shots, because the turret armor is 52mm. This is 52mm thick. Will you be penetrated? You definitely will. You will be penetrated by every single shot aimed at this tank, even when angling the hull. So don't hope to bounce shots even from there. Then the gun depression on this tank is very, very good, I must say. The gun depression is pretty good on all tanks of this new line. It's good on the Indian Panzer. You can see the Indian Panzer here. It's really outstanding on the Indian Panzer, actually. I'm not quite sure about the gun depression on the Leopard Prototype A. I don't think it's all that great. But on the Leopard 1 again, the gun depression is really good. And the gun elevation is very, very good as well. So, and that allows you to very efficiently peek over hills with your turret and then take a quick pot shot and then just retreat behind the hill again. Weak spots in the hull. There aren't a lot of weak spots. There's this driver's hatch here, but it's very, very difficult to hit, and you don't really want to hit it because this area here is the only part in the front of the hull where you will bounce shots, because it's auto bounce on from the front. This is auto bounce because the angling is steeper than 70 degrees. So you know, if angling is steeper than 70 degrees, it's auto bounce. So that means every single shot will bounce from there. But let's face it, how high are the chances that a shot hits this part of the hull? Very minimal. As for the lower glaciers, that obviously is a weak spot, and these two, I don't know really what they are up here, but they're obviously weak spots as well. There's one place in the hull you shouldn't be aiming for except for this bit of it, and these are these two cheeks, because they're angled very, very steeply from the front, as you can see. So that's pretty dangerous, aiming for those. But that don't be ridiculous. Is it worthwhile searching for weak spots on a tank with 70mm at the front of armor? It definitely isn't, because you can just aim anywhere in this tank, and with a probability of 99% you'll do a damaging hit, a penetrating damaging hit. So yeah, searching for weak spots is kind of ridiculous. Yeah, now that we've spoken through all the theoretical stuff, the first game I want to show you was one of my first few games in this tank, and as you can see, I'm one of the last survivors. The reason I've jumped into this game at this late stage is because I was AFK for the best part of it. The reason for that was that my computer was refusing to connect me to the battle, and so right at the end it at last did so, but it took quite a while. So yeah, as you can see, my team has only got 2 RTs and me left, and the other team has got another Leopard 1 and 3 RTs left. So let's see how it turns out. So first of all, I decide to go up that hill back there because I want to hide in those bushes up there and do some sniping. And just right here you can see how fast this tank is. I'm driving backwards up this hill and it's still between 20 and 30 kilometers fast. That's really fast going uphill, and that's driving backwards, you have to remember. So if I would be driving up this hill forwards, I would be somewhere between 30 and 40 kilometers per hour. So down there in the chat you could just see me apologizing for being AFK. So the object answers something in Russian I can't understand, but I hope it means no problem or something like that. So I first of all want to go here, but it's as you can see, when I go into sniper mode, there's a large part of the map that I can't reach with my gun there, and my gun depression is good, but it's not good enough to to snipe from there. So I move down the hill a bit, and I actually first of all try to go here, but as you can see, I'm not really pleased with that location either, because my sniping range isn't big enough. So I decide to hide in these bushes, and that's a pretty good idea, as you will see just in a few seconds. So I have to wait quite a while. The enemy Leopard 1 is somewhere in the city, but he's camping there, I think, and the artilleries are both on the opposite side of this gorge here, or however you want to call it. So just right there I spot the first artillery, or no, I actually think it's the other artillery who spots him. So you can just see how accurate this gun is and how fast the shells of this gun travel. So you see, I still get him, I ammo rack him, and that's just a really good example for how fast the shells travel on this gun. So there I get the bat shot arty, and he goes into cover behind a house. I don't really know what those two arties were wanting to achieve there, but whatever it was, they didn't. So now I'm going to go in to kill that bat shot arty, and I'm a bit scared of the Leopard 1 that's on my left side somewhere and sniping, but I can kill the artillery without having any problems with the Leopard. And right there you can see the Leopard is attacking our object 261, so I will try to help my arty, and of course I want to kill the Leopard as well. And I'm pretty relieved at this moment, because I realised that the Leopard 1 has got far less health than me, so I can just very easily just come here and get him. But I can't save my artillery anymore, so my artillery's wasted, and now it's only me against the T92 left. And the T92 seems to be a pretty good player, because he's already got 4 kills. And the problem is, I've only got 1950 HP, so he can one-shot me if he gets a direct hit. So I have to be very careful. But just right now, in a few seconds, you'll see my great view range coming in useful. But at the moment I'm just driving around, so that's a bit boring, so I'll just skip forwards. And yeah, I'm under the bridge now and heading for the enemy base. And I decide to head up this hill, but just in that moment I spot the T92, so you can see that's the great view range walking for me, and I get a nice shot, but I leave him with only 19 HP left. So I'm a bit cautious, but in the end I get him, so we win the game, mostly thanks to me. Of course it wasn't very nice of me to be AFK, but it wasn't really my fault. So yeah, I'll just show you a second game as well. The second game I'm going to show you is an assault match on Ehrenberg, and yeah, this game, I'm showing you this game because I get to do some sniping as well as some brawling in it. So you've got the whole variety of this tank, more or less. Yeah, so I head for the right flank and hide behind this, or go beside this rock here, so that it protects me from the left side from enemies that might be sniping at me. And just there you can see the awesome accuracy once more. That bat shot, there was just a tiny bit of its turret peeking out, and I got it and made quite a lot of damage, about 450 damage, so that's really good. And yeah, so that's why I'm just gonna stay here and do some sniping. So So there I can see E100, and of course I bounce. Any gun would bounce from that armor at that angle. That's just, that was just kind of a stupid shot, more or less. So there's an E50M and the object 268 scouts back there. So I try to shoot the object 268, but I only track him. That's a bit of a shame. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not all that good either. So I take another shot at the place where I think he is, just because I might hit him. And now I concentrate again on that E100 down there, because I don't like enemies on both my flanks. So, yeah. Now I rush in to, first of all, get better shots of these enemies up here, but I realise that they're kind of all hiding, so I decide to go for the E100. But before I do that, I quickly want to have a shot at that FE183. And I just get him right in the rear, which is partly due to my great bullet velocity. I just have to say that over and over again. The speed that these bullets have got is really, really awesome. So it takes a while to get used to that speed, but when you have, it's just really fun playing with it. So the E100 is down, so I don't have to go after him anymore. So I want to kind of come round the back of my enemies here, but that T-57 heavy is blocking my way, so I retreat behind this house before he can empty his autoloader clip at me. And I just have to always hide behind this house, because of my really bad armor, because he's going to penetrate me every single shot. So yeah, that's why I always come out and have a quick shot and then drive back again. So now I turn my attention to the other side of the map and see if I can snipe some targets there, but I obviously can't. So I can't see the T-75 heavy, so I just let my hull peek out and see if he shoots at me. He doesn't, so I reckon he isn't there, and that's why I decide to attack. So as you can see, my teammates are coming from attacking these guys from the front, so I want to attack them from the back, but before I scout the arty. So of course I want to get rid of that first, for two reasons. The first reason is because it's a very, very easy kill, and the second reason is because it's very dangerous. So I got the GW Type E, and now there's only an object 268 and an E50M left, and they're both hanging out here, and I get quite a few unlucky shots at that object 268. So first of all I miss, but I was driving, so that isn't that bad. My second shot, I only track him, so that's a bit of a shame. I could have avoided that if I would have gone into sniper mode, and I would have killed him, but then somebody else gets him. So now I'm doing something that isn't really very clever with his E50M. I'm face-hugging him, but in this case it was okay, because I had a lot of allied support around me, and the artillery was all shooting at him, and he didn't have all that many HP left, so that worked out pretty okay. So all in all, yeah, that was a kind of an okay game. It's kind of like more or less average, but I didn't have all that many games in this tank yet, so of course I'm not all that used to it yet. So yeah, to discuss tactics and so on, let's go back to the garage. So of course we aren't done with this tank yet. There are a lot of things left to say concerning tactics and furthermore. First of all, there's one thing I want to quickly add, and that is that I'm pretty disappointed with wargaming, and I'm pretty disappointed about this tank in one point, and that is its colour, because as I already said, this tank was built, the prototypes of this tank were built in 1965, so that means the actual tank was built even later. Now, what I think is very disappointing about it is that this tank has got the standard colours of the German tanks of the Wehrmacht, and this tank, of course, in 1965 there wasn't any Wehrmacht anymore, because there weren't any Nazis anymore in Germany. So this is a tank that served in the Republic of Germany, and in the Republic of Germany there aren't any grey tanks. The tanks are green, or I don't know what colour they are, but they definitely aren't grey, and I'm not sure about the sign, but I don't think they have this sign. Another thing that disturbs me about the tank is that you get this flag of the German Reich under Hitler in the background of this tank, and I don't think that's very nice, because there are two reasons for that. One thing, the first reason is I don't like Hitler, and the second reason is because this tank hasn't got anything to do with Hitler. So why is this tank grey, and why is there this Nazi flag in the background of a tech tree? That disturbs me. And the Nazi flag is here in the background, down here in the garage as well. I don't think that's very good. If we look at the exterior, of course you can put camouflage onto it, but I don't think this camouflage is very up to date, for one thing, because probably in 1965 the Germans had other camouflages, I hope better ones, because I'm not a great fan of the camouflages that the Germans have got in World of Tanks. Well, anyway, this isn't really about my taste concerning camouflages, is it? It's about the Leopard 1, and now we'll come to the tactics that you should use on it. Yeah, this tank is quite much an all-rounder. Why is it an all-rounder? Because first of all, it's got great speed and great view range, and a pretty good signal range. That makes it to a good scout. It's got an awesome gun with a very good accuracy, or with a good accuracy or a decent accuracy on the move, considering its high speed. That makes it to a very good brawling and flanking tank. It has awesome penetration and awesome accuracy, which makes it to a great sniper. There's only one thing you shouldn't be doing with this tank, and that is head-up fighting, like single combat, just, you know, ramming an enemy tank and then just, you know, staying there and just, you know, having a duel with it. The reason for that is because you will probably bounce, but you won't bounce any shots from the enemy tank. So face hugging and so on isn't a very good idea with this tank, because no matter where the enemy shoot, they definitely penetrate you every time. So no face hugging. It depends on what kind of gameplay style you prefer, because it can adapt to kind of more or less any style that you want it to. So I use this tank mostly for rushing to strategically important positions. So that would be, like, say, on Malinovka, the hill, or on Himmelsdorf, the hill as well. Places like that. It's a very good idea to rush to those places on maps, and hold those positions till your heavy tanks have arrived there, and then you can go on. And then, of course, you can do scouting as well, and you can do what you can do very well as well in this tank, because of its great speed and its great gun, is you can drive around the flanks of your enemies and attack them in the rear. That's a very good thing to do in this tank, but it doesn't matter what tactic you use, there's always one thing you have to keep in the back of your mind. This tank hasn't got any armor. So your main enemy is HE shells. I know this tank is very fast, so RT won't be keen on picking on it, but that's saying if you're in the move. If you're standing still, the RT will love this tank, because most of the RTs will be able to one-shot you due to your low hit points and your ridiculously thin armor. So if you've got the feeling that RT is near at hand, or if you're on an open map without any cover or so on, always keep moving. But keep moving in city maps as well, because you can be never 100% sure that you're in RT cover. So the most important thing about this tank is always stay in the move. The second thing is be careful, because you aren't a bat shot. The bat shot is an extremely compact, small tank that's a bit more speedy even than this tank due to its better acceleration. This tank isn't a bad shot. Its profile from the side is pretty large. So if you're circling an enemy tank in a carousel maneuver, or just, you know, driving past a gap between two houses and there are enemy snipers waiting for you in that gap, be very, very cautious, because your hole is that long and it isn't covered by tracks all the time. So enemies have a very, very easy time getting shots into you, even if you're passing by and with top speed, because they can just aim in front of you and they'll definitely hit you because you're that long. Another thing that I forgot to say earlier when I was talking about sniping is that you have to be careful about this gun, because the velocity of the shells in this gun is the fastest I've ever seen. So if you're sniping or trying to hit enemy tanks that are on the move and are pretty far away, make sure not to aim too far in front of these tanks, because your shells will reach them earlier than you think they will, because these shells just travel that incredibly fast, and your penetration is really good as well. So like I had a situation where I was sniping IS-7 from I think about, it must have been nearly 600 meters distance or something like that, and I penetrated him every single time in the front of his hull. And you know, he's got this really tough pike nose, so the penetration is really great on this tank. But just keep that in mind. If you're sniping, don't aim too far in front of the enemy tank that you want to hit, because the shells of this gun travel a lot faster than you think they do, and you'll hit the tank in a blink of an eye. There won't be that much of an interval between shot and hit, so bear that in the back of your head. Yeah, that was kind of all concerning tactics. Just be very, very careful because of your low armor. And yeah, let's move on to crew. Crew skills are very important on this tank, especially the repair skill, because the speed is everything in this tank. And if you get tracked, and as you can see, your tracks aren't protected all that well, especially from the side and rear. From the front, there are these little flaps here that will protect them a bit, but from sides and rear, you will be tracked pretty often. So make sure to train repair skill. Another very, very important skill that you have to learn is, let's have a look at the gunner. Is snapshot. You definitely have to train snapshot, because this tank is that fast. And I mean, if you want to play this tank like a sniper, it isn't all that important. But if you want to play this tank on the front line as a kind of a brawling tank, you definitely need snapshot, because it's that fast and the inaccuracy while on the move is pretty high. It's lower than average for the speed, but it's still pretty high just because of the speed. So definitely get snapshot, and of course repairs. Then for the driver, if you get snapshot for the gunner, obviously you should get a smooth ride for the driver. Another important thing is off-road driving, because this tank, keeping a speed in this tank is decisive for your success. So make sure to get this skill. Controlled impact may make sense as well, but don't get that as first skill, but get it later on. As for clutch braking, there's no point in getting clutch braking because of this awesome traverse speed. It's got one of the best traverse speeds in the game, if not the best traverse speed in the game. Don't bother about clutch braking. Now we come to the loader, and there's one skill that you definitely need to get for the loader, and that is safe storage. Why do you have to get safe storage? A simple reason: because this tank hasn't got any armor, and if you get shot at the front of your turret, because you haven't got that much armor, the shot will go right through into your ammo rack. And I get ammo racked in 2 out of 3 games in this tank. So definitely make sure to get safe storage. you know I'm not a big fan of a load of skills, but in this case safe storage definitely makes sense, and adrenaline rush isn't all that bad either, because your reload time isn't that good for a medium tank. As for the commander, I've left him out. As for the commander, you should get, it depends on what kind of role you want to play. If you want to be a sniper, make sure to get 6th sense, because that's important for snipers. And of course you could get camouflage for all your crew if you want to be a sniper as well. If you want to be a scout, you should definitely get recon, and then because your commander is also your radio operator, you should get situational awareness. Signal booster is also a very, very good idea, because signal range and view range are the most important things except for speed when you're scouting. So make sure to get this skill, and this skill for scouting, and if you want to be a sniper, this skill. Of course, for a sniper, if you want to snipe, it's never a bad idea to get Deadeye. Deadeye is always a pretty good idea if you're sniping, that is. If you're not sniping, forget Deadeye. And then I just saw armorer here. Don't bother about armorer, because your gun doesn't get hit all that often, just because it's pretty small, and usually the hits don't hit the gun, they just go right through to the back of your turret. So again, repair is top priority on this tank. Then definitely get safe storage for the loader, and snapshot and smooth ride for the gunner and driver. For the driver, off-road driving is very important as well. So let's have a look at the equipment. First of all, it's very, very important to get vertical stabilizer. That's the very, very first equipment you should mount, just because you want to keep that aiming time down. It helps keep the aiming time down, and it makes you a lot more accurate when you're driving. If you plan on being a sniper, you could swap vertical stabilizer for the enhanced gun lane drive, because that will improve your aiming time, and that's more important as a sniper, because as a sniper you won't be moving around all that much. So if you want to be a brawler, get vertical stabilizer. If you want to be a sniper, get enhanced gun lane drive. Or if you want to be really, really good, get both of them. But the aiming time on this tank is pretty good already, so it doesn't really need all that much of a buff. So I would more recommend vertical stabilizer. Then you should definitely get the medium tank gun rammer, because as I already mentioned, the reload time of this tank is pretty bad for a medium tank. And then your last skill depends on what you want to be. If you want to be a scout, definitely get coated optics. If you want to be a sniper, you should get binocular telescope, I guess, because as a sniper you play a lot more stationary. Another equipment you could get for your third slot is the toolbox, because as I already said, repair speed is essential on this tank. So again, first of all, vertical stabilizer or enhanced gun lane drive, but I would recommend vertical stabilizer. Then the medium tank gun rammer, and as a third skill you could choose between coated optics, binocular telescope, or toolbox, depending on what tactic you prefer. Another thing that could be useful for you, if you realise that you've got a big problem with artillery in this tank, because as I already mentioned, this tank's armor doesn't really exist. I mentioned that pretty often, so I think you should have got that by now. You could get medium spore liner, just because it will reduce the damage that artillery does to you. You can consider that as well, and if the ammo racking gets really annoying for you, you could get wet ammo rack, but these two aren't that important really, because you should rely on your speed to protect you from artillery. So yeah, that's for equipment. And then of course, concerning the service, you'll be usually using this tank's gun with the 10.5 centimeter armor piercing shells. Of course, you can get premium ammunition as well, but I wouldn't recommend you to do that. The simple reason for that is because, first of all, it's super expensive, and second of all, your penetration is really good already with the normal shells. I don't see the point in getting premium ammunition. So, as for consumables, I would recommend for you manual fire extinguisher, repair kit, and first aid kit. The second two consumables are especially important for this tank because, as I already said, or as I've kind of mentioning every 10 seconds by now, this tank's armor is made of paper. So yeah, sorry that I'm repeating that often, but it's just, it's just that important. So your modules and crew will be dying like flies, and your modules will break down very often as well. So those two are very important. I haven't realized a big problem with engine fires in this tank yet, but manual fire extinguisher always is a very, very good thing to have. So yeah, that was it, I guess. As a roundup, I really love this tank. It's a bit difficult to figure out how to play it, and it took me quite a few games to get a hang of it. But when I did, this tank is so enjoyable because it's so it's so versatile in how you want to play it. You can play it as a scout, you can play it as a sniper, you can play it as a brawler. The only thing you can't play this tank is like a heavy tank, because yeah, obviously it isn't a heavy tank. It's a pretty light, medium tank. Yeah, so I really love this tank. I'm definitely gonna play really hard to get it. And getting this tank will take me through other tanks that I'm really looking forward to, especially the Indian Panzer. But I'm not all that keen on the Leopard Prototype A, but it will do me. It's tier 9. It'd take quite a while to get through a tier 9 tank, about 300 games, but it's definitely worth it to get this baby here. And yeah, as I already said, watch out for reviews and gameplay videos that I will upload about grinding my way up this new tech tree branch. I am definitely looking forward to a lot of fun with these new German tanks, and I hope you will have some too if you plan on getting them. So yeah, thanks for watching a lot, and again, I hope I could help you along. Yeah, so thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.